the finals in the PCL, I was like, maybe this guy's decent. Maybe I should give him the chance. But we are live now. Hello, everyone. Couple minutes late, but when you have special guests, you're allowed to be a little bit late. This is episode 36 of the HoopTalk podcast, season 2. We are joined by two special guests, ZZ and Real Talk. First time appearances on the HoopTalk podcast for both of you guys. Welcome to the channel. How are you guys doing?
I'm doing well, man. Thank you for having me. Been looking forward to this one. You know what I'm saying? This is where I get objective marks. You know what I'm saying? This is where I get
as close to it as possible.
as close to it as possible. You know what I'm saying? And also
for having me, Morris.
well,
It's been a long time coming, so let's get to it.
Yeah, I seen you. You've been wallowing in the depths of from the logo. I was like, let me try to save you real quick. Come over to the big leagues.
Great hoop talk over there as well.
Yeah, for sure. We try. For anyone wondering, I have been teasing this for a little while. This is the first episode of the 6-part series where we are going to give you the top 10 players of all time at each position, and then we will end it with the top 10 players of all time, period. So this is going to be 6 weeks of great off-season content with a bunch of different guests, bunch of different faces. This week is the point guard edition. The way it worked was everyone up here sent me their top 10 point guards of all time, along with some faces who you are familiar with but aren't on the show obviously today. And we compiled those lists, or I compiled those lists to get an average and get the official top 10 point guards of all time as decided by many well-known faces in the YouTube basketball community. This should be fun. This should be entertaining. Before we get into it, we do have a super chat from Hunter3200. And it's about the Knicks. So we'll talk about the Knicks and then we'll get into it. He said, what do you guys think of my Knicks signing Jordan Clarkson and Yabusele plus Mike Brown as our new head coach? I personally am very excited. Does anyone have any thoughts on the Knicks?
I think Mike Brown is going to be able to get a little bit more offensive potential out of the New York Knicks. I know we saw a lot of Brunson heavy minutes throughout the regular season, a lot of Cat heavy, and it didn't really seem like he properly utilized OG Anunoby and Mikal Bridges the way that I think he could have. So I think Mike Brown will definitely help with their offense reaching another level. And then Jordan Clarkson and Gershon Yabusele coming off the bench is going to be extremely helpful for the Knicks. You get another scorer off the bench. You can have somebody take that, kind of not take the offensive role, but fill in for Jalen Brunson when he's on the bench. And then you still have Deuce McBride, who's a really good defender and shot maker. You can have Karl Anthony Towns play, and you can stagger the minutes between Brunson and Cat and have like a backcourt of Deuce and Clarkson, and then have a front court of Mitchell Robinson and Gershon Yabusele when you're playing with Jalen Brunson. So it's not all about just having names coming off the bench or having the most players coming off the bench. It's about how you utilize the players you have and the versatility you can bring. So I think I definitely think it was some good pickups.
I'm not as optimistic, but I like Mike Brown, but I feel like their biggest issue is defense, and they haven't addressed that. Yabu is not a defender. Jordan Clarkson is not a defender. They've got two offensive focused players, especially Jordan Clarkson. And I feel they didn't really have trouble scoring. Jalen Brunson is someone you can go to for late clock offense. Karl Anthony Towns, obviously a walking mismatch at the 5. OG with his capabilities, blah, blah, blah. The issue was the fact that you have two of the biggest liabilities in the league at their respective positions, and you're surrounding that with two more players who I would deem close to liabilities. So that's my concern. But we'll see what Mike Brown does. I do think Mike Brown is a really good coach. I think he's a smart coach. I think he's really inventive offensively. I expect him to use Cat more in that hub role, which is going to be interesting. I expect to see 5-6 assists a game and everyone be like, oh my god, Cat's a playmaker. So that's going to be fun. But overall, I don't view the Knicks as any more contenders than they were last year, besides the fact that the East has gotten weaker. So they have, does that make sense? They have a better chance, but they aren't necessarily better. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That's how I view them. But anyway, enough Knicks talk. We're not here for that. We are here for the top 10 point guards of all time. I will let the chat know there was 19 people who contributed to these lists. Those names are myself, John D, ZZ, and Real Talk, obviously. And then we had Low, Tyler from Hoop Venue, Sean from the Hoop Venue podcast, Ox from the panel, Ron from the panel, KB, very well-known person from the Gold-Blooded podcast. He shows up on some playbacks from time to time that I don't listen to. Pirate, very well-known face from Player's Choice. Penn, Riv from Pick a Side, Carson and Carson from Nerd Sesh, my original co-host Dream from season 1 of the Hoop Talk podcast, Swiper, and Jordan. Those are the names that all contributed to the list. I don't know if I said Chill contributed to the list too. So those are the names that we had that all contributed. So a bunch of different opinions have all come together to make this these lists. Yeah, so
I'm now very
interested
in
this should be interesting. This should be interesting. The one criteria I set out, there was only one rule. The people you list have to have been listed at this position for the majority of their prime. That was the only rule. So it was going back throughout NBA history. Every player is only going to be on the list for the position they were listed at the most in their prime. So no James Harden on the point guard list, yada, yada, yada. You get what I'm saying? That's the only rule. Everyone followed that rule. Couple mishaps here and there, but we got it sorted. And we are here and we are officially ready to start. Before we get into the top 10, there were 16 names that were given to me across the 19 lists. And we're going to start from 16 and work our way up. In 16th place, in last place, with 1 point, was Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. He had 1 vote. John Z, that was you. You was the only person who had SGA.
Yes, it was.
Why was SGA on your list?
For the bottom tier of, I wouldn't say bottom tier, but bottom of the top 10, it was just really hard for me to argue that Shai's not better than them. Like, I understand that Shai is like, he's still playing right now and he hasn't finished his career yet. But I just think Shai's already an all-time scorer and he's already been able to sustain that throughout a playoff run. He's a solid defender. He's one of the greatest mid-range shooters we've seen, one of the greatest ball handlers we've seen, isolation players. So I understand where the longevity plays a factor in it. And my number 9 player is probably going to weigh into the same thing as well. But it's just hard for me to say that some of these guys that may be in the top 10 are better offensive players.
What's you guys thoughts? You guys obviously didn't have Shai, but did you consider him?
I didn't, but the reason that I didn't, like, I can't argue with what John D said in terms of like, does he belong in these conversations, right? Because I even said before they won the damn finals, once he wins and he'll have completed everything, MVP, scoring title, all-star, Western Conference Finals MVP and Finals MVP. Once he has that, then he's in conversations that some all-time guards aren't in. You have to factor that in. But for me, looking at Steph, thinking back to when he won his first one, the conversation right after wasn't, damn, this was one of the best seasons ever. Is Steph an all-time great? It was this a fluke? So with everything that's about to happen next year, with the Eastern Conference being wide open and all that, the Thunder being still projected to represent the Western Conference, if they can hold up 2 years in a row and then thus in a 3-year time span, be the youngest 1 seed ever, then do it again, but then win the championship, then go back to back, they're not going to have these conversations a lot more comfortably. Respect John D, because that's a tough fence to be on right now, but in a year's time, yeah, I can see, you know what I'm saying? I can see where you're at.
Yeah, I think with Curry, we were saying like after 2016, he was definitely in those conversations.
Right.
With the unanimous MVP season. 2015, I can understand because he obviously wasn't to the level he was in 2016 that he was in 2015. Still a great MVP season, still a great season put together from the Golden State Warriors. But I 100% think like if I was in this stage 10 years ago, I would be arguing Steph was a top 10 point guard after that unanimous MVP season. I just think Shai has put together one of the greatest scoring seasons from a point guard, like 33 points per game on 64% true shooting, being able to have counters to what any defender can throw at him. He can stop on a dime. He's extremely athletic. He has the stop and go aspect that he brings to the game as well, being able to stop on a dime and regain his speed by driving to the rim. This is one of the greatest scoring seasons I've ever seen. And he's also done that. Well, he hasn't done it to this level, but he's also done 3 straight years of 30 points per game. And I believe all NBA first team. Did he make it in? Yeah. Okay.
Yes, he did.
So I think it's comfortable to say he's 10. Now there are still some guys on this list where it's like, okay, they've done it longer. They've also done some really good things in their era as well. So I didn't want to push it all the way up and be like, oh yeah, he's top 5. But I think 10 was reasonable.
For me personally, I didn't consider Shai just because of the years played. Honestly, obviously, if he continues on his trajectory, he's very clearly going to be on this list and very high on this list. I didn't consider Luka either, and y'all know that's my guy. You know what I'm saying? I didn't have him on the list. Do I think Luka, do I think there's 10 better point guards ever in the NBA than Luka? Absolutely not. But, just got to continue to build on the resume. My thought process is like, Shai's been kind of peaking right now since what? 22, 23.
22, 23.
Sure,
like
the
that, right?
last 3 seasons or so, yeah.
Right, last 3 years. So even if I were to say like, okay, I give Shai these 3 years, the chip, all of that, do I think that supersedes, everything some of these other guys have done throughout their entirety of their career? I would disagree with that personally. But if it was a peak argument, I mean, yeah, he'd definitely be on the top 10. But it's not
Yeah,
peak.
Without spoiling who you guys have at 10, how many years, assuming Shai stays on this trajectory, how long until he cracks into the top 10?
I'd give him 2 years. Like if what we saw from the Thunder this year is, and they don't even need to like necessarily three-peat, but if it's 3 straight trips to the Western Conference Finals, right, at the bare minimum, with say averaging, leading the league in scoring, the playoff production being sustained throughout the postseason. If everything goes right, like Real Talk said, he stays on his trajectory, because the trajectory that he's on is like he's a 30-point per game scorer, like John D said, best mid-range shooter in the game, arguably, if you look at statistics, best driver of the basketball in terms of per point production. Off of that, you can make all these arguments. If he stays healthy, stays consistent on that trajectory, in another 2 years, making it a 3-year duration of Thunder dominance led by Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, hell yeah. Because now we're talking dynasty talks. Now we're talking, like Real Talk said, adding to that resume. So yeah, give him 2 more years of peak Shai, then hell yeah, it wouldn't even be a discussion or topic of discussion.
I like how like Mars always asks these questions. It's like, well, how many years exactly? I don't,
Yeah.
You
and
just
then
know
I
it
answer
when he's there. You have a
yeah, you
vibes.
just well, you know what I'm saying? Well, you know. Honestly, I'm not mad at John D for having him on the list already. Like I think all 4 of us believe that if he's not on the list right now, he's going to be on the list. Like
Right.
it's not
Right.
it's just a matter of when, not if. You know what I'm saying? But again, a lot of things can happen in a career. You know what I'm saying? Knocking on wood, obviously, but just you just gotta have it play out. That's it.
Okay, so when you know. Thanks for the cop out
When
answer.
you know.
So that was 16th place with 1 point. Next we have a 3-way tie with 2 points. So all these guys tied for 13. One of them was Luka Doncic with 2 points. John D, you was the only person who had him on the list. So we don't need to go into a spiel. The reason no one else had him is going to be the same reasons.
Yeah, literally.
We will obviously talk about all these players. They all deserve to be spoke about. But the next 2 players, I think, might surprise a few more people. So Luka, I think, is the least surprising. The next one, who I think might be the second least surprising, is Damian Lillard. He had a 9th place vote from my former co-host Dream. And then the one that wasn't surprising, when the person sent me the list, that they were the one that had them, but it's surprising that they made the list, and that's Rajon Rondo. He had 1 9th place vote. Yeah, Rajon Rondo had 1 9th place vote. Any guesses? Yep, Ox. Okay, yeah, yes. Yes. We'll start with Luka Doncic. John D, we know why he's not on anyone else's list, but just talk to me about Luka and what led you to putting him on the list.
I think because to be honest, I think this goes into the same argument I have for Shai. Like, we're looking at 2 guys who, in my opinion, are talented enough to be top 10 point guards of the NBA. When you look at SGA, he's already one of the greater scoring guards or scoring point guards in NBA history, in my opinion. With Luka Doncic, he's already one of the greater playmaking and passing guards that we've seen. The ability to play out of the pick and roll, the ability to find lob threats, or the ability to kick out to three or the ability to score at the level he does. And over the first few years of his career was carrying into the playoffs. Now you can understand last year there were some injury concerns, and this year he may have came back too early or he just wasn't in shape. I could definitely understand that argument. But when we talk about somebody who can play in the pick and roll at the level he does, have a heliocentric style of offense that can carry into winning that the way it has, especially last season having play finishers, 3-point shooters, Kyrie next to him, and a really good defense, I think that type of talent, it's like, if he continues down this road that he's shown us throughout his career, I think that's a top 10 player. And to be honest, I think the reason I have Luka ahead of SGA is because I think Luka came in a little bit more dominant than SGA did. So that's just what I'm counting as of right now.
A little bit more.
Yeah.
Yeah,
definitely a lot of bit more. Definitely.
We know he one of them ones. Yeah.
My question, and I also didn't have Luka on the list, so I guess the question does apply to myself too. But I understand the value of longevity. It's something I value a lot when we do these types of lists. You'll see as the list goes on. But I think it's fair to say Luka Doncic has been a top 10 player in the league for the last 6 years. I think that's fair.
Yeah.
He's been top 5.
Yeah.
He's been top 5 for 4 or 5 of those years.
Yeah, I would say
I think that's fair to say.
22, 21.
So at what point does being a top 5 player for half a decade outweigh being really good for a decade?
You don't have to talk me too much into it. If we want to put Luka on the list,
I do agree. Unfortunately, he didn't come very close, but
I see what you're saying though, because like you would think just off of the years played in the league, it's like maybe a bit soon. But then when you really just look into it, I mean, he's been elite the entire time. Yeah. Basically, since second year in the league, he's been elite, been one of the ones. Making first team All-NBA when it was positional over Curry over and over and over again is not a small feat. We often like look at All-NBAs and try to dismiss them because it's voted on award or whatnot, and then also level of competition comes into play. But he's beating out like peaking Steph Curry. Like
the best point guard era of all time is what it was called.
Yeah.
So
that's Luka been one of the ones, man.
Yeah, you didn't put him on the list. Interesting. He had 2 points. So each of them. So the 4 names we've had, all of them have just been on one list. 2 of them have been John D. So John D only has 8 names left. So just want to put that out there. John D only has 8 names left. Meanwhile, the rest of us, we're still sitting on 10. So good work, guys. At next, we get a big jump in terms of points. The next person had 12 points. They came 12th place, had 12 points. They ultimately did not make the list. John D, you had this person too. So
please don't tell me it's who I think it is.
3 of your top 10 did not make the list. This one is Walt Frazier. John D, you ultimately did have him at 7. This is someone who I've been seeing you on the timeline praising. So I also had Walt Frazier on the list. I had him at 9. Road Talk and ZZ did not. But John D, I'm gonna start with you. Talk to me about Walt Frazier and why should he be on this list?
Mars, I know who you probably think is the best defender on this list. I think Walt's better. I think the ability to apply ball pressure in that era of basketball and disrupt the ability to get the ball down low to the big, or the ability to disrupt the other opposing guard to initiate offense in that era is really valuable. I think he applied really big pressure on the ball. I think he was really good off ball. Throughout his peak, in my opinion, from 69 to 72, he was getting to the free throw line 7 times a game, shot 50% from 2-pointers, and a lot of that was in the mid-range. He was a really good mid-range scorer, got to the basket efficiently. He played next to Willis Reed, which I think was really impressive as well. Just being able to play off the ball, being able to play on the ball, drive, cut, things of that nature. I was really high on Walt Frazier. I went really high on Walt Frazier as I've been watching more older players over the offseason. I've been really high on Walt Frazier, one of those guys, man.
I mean, me too. I mean, you were higher on him than me. Because you sent me 2 lists, I think. The first list, you had Walt Frazier at like 9 or 10. And then you changed it and you moved him up to 7. So you must have seen a game where he had like 40 or something. I don't know. But I had Walt Frazier at 9. This is someone who I've been very high on. I think he's one of the more forgotten point guards. I think him only having 12 points does kind of indicate how the 70s in general does get forgotten and the great players of that era. I think he's the second best defensive point guard ever. That's a hot take because
Okay.
I know there's
Okay.
someone else who may be coming up later who is considered by many to be the best. But I value similar things to what John D does, the ability to press the ball full court. I understand the difference in error. So with the ball handling restrictions, it made it easier for a physical guard like Walt Frazier to be impactful defensively. But all my analysis is relative to error. So if you are that physical big guard and you are able to impose that defensively, that is more valuable to me. And then offensively, the mid-range game, the ability to stop on a dime and pull up, the deceleration, the craft, the counters, very underrated. His ability to hit turnaround jumpers. His handle was very advanced for the time, especially considering the rules. This is just someone who could put the ball in the basket and who could be one of the best defenders in the league. And he did it for a reasonably long time. That was enough for me to get him at the 9 spot. He was only on, I want to make sure I get this right. He was only on 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 lists. He was only on 5 of the 19 lists and ended up with 12 points. So 14 people, including you two down there, did not put him on the list. So I just want to ask, was that an oversight? Did you just think the 10 guys you have are better? What is it about Walt Frazier that led you to leaving him off the list?
For me, it was probably 100% an oversight. As you know, Mars, I sent you like 3 lists, maybe.
Yeah, you sabotaged me today. It's cool.
So my bad, but I told Mars afterwards, I was like, this shit was way more complicated than I thought. And I always because literally I don't really think about my top 10's positions all the time a lot. Usually it's something that's that top 10 list is already kind of stored away. And once I went back to it, I was like, shit. I had left off Jerry West at one point, Stockton at one point, and then at this point I was like, well, shit, I don't even know from 6 to 10 what's really what if it's legit. But I'll tell you this, Walt Frazier is someone that I've even done videos on, just as underrated players of all time throughout history that get lost in time. Walt Frazier was one of them. So yeah, he probably would be around between 8 to 10 on my list if I were to go back and definitely lock in more on the research end. But yeah, good pull for both of y'all. Not gonna lie.
Thank you.
Put some respect on his name.
No, I mean, I just believe the 10 I have are better players. There was also one that I, for the longest, thought was a shooting guard, but
you aren't the only one. You aren't the only one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. When I was like, oh wow, okay, well he's on.
I didn't want to be in a position where 6 people put him on the 2 guard list.
Yeah,
and then 8 people, and then it's like he ends up 9 on both lists because I was like, everyone just call him a point guard. I'm talking about Jerry West, by the way, chat. Spoiler alert, he's gonna show up. So everyone got told Jerry West will be on the point guard list. So everyone will not have him on the 2 guard list. That's it. But so you just think Walt Frazier he's just not top 10.
Yeah, I mean, especially once I added that name to it, and then I looked at my list just to double check. And respect to Walt, I do think he's one of the older players I watch. I say this about Jerry West all the time, that I truly do feel like can translate because of the skill set that he had. You know what I'm saying? Like a skillful basketball player. You know what I'm saying? Like Walt's another one. You know what I'm saying? He was a skillful basketball player. Like he could actually, I could see it, I could visualize it. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, Walt was really good. Just not better than my 10 personally.
Okay, I respect it. That is our 12 spot. Although we didn't talk about Rondo and Dame. Do we have to talk about Rondo and Dame?
We can talk about Rondo if we talking about like all time on 2K. Yeah. Because
do you guys want to talk about Rondo and do you guys want to talk about Rondo and Dame?
I want to talk about Dame because we were having a conversation on shout out the panel at one time about Dame, and I think it was like Westbrook. And then I was saying how, you had
that conversation.
I would definitely have Dame, you know what I'm saying, on like top. But when I did the list,
you liar,
I lied.
You liar.
I don't have Dame in my top 10.
Spoiler alert.
That's actually crazy. I thought I would.
Dame was someone I considered. But then I looked at who I had 8, 9, and 10. And at best, he was going to get to 10. That was really that was the best he was going to do, was going to get to 10. I just couldn't do it. I couldn't bring myself to put him at the 10 spot. I'm going to be honest. I think Dame is one of he's of that like Gilbert Arenas archetype. He's of that tree, that skill tree of these heavy, high pick and roll, pull up threes, pull up jump shooting guards. He didn't have the physicality of a Gill. He wasn't that type of player, but the impact he had, especially from that little stretch from like 2019 to 2023, there was a down year in 22 because he was dealing with the injury. But that stretch, I think Dame was a top 10 player in the league. That's my opinion. I think Dame was a top 10 player in the league.
Solid argument.
Probably the second best point guard in the league overall. I think Luka did end up surpassing him during that stretch, but overall, from beginning to end, I would still call him the second best point guard in the league.
19 to 23.
Yeah, I think because 19, I think Dame and Luka weren't even in the same stratosphere. 2020, I think Dame and Luka were close. I favor Dame personally. 21, 22, 23, I think that's when you get to Luka being better. But I would put them in the same. I'll put them in the same group. Now that I think about it, I'll put them in the same group. So someone who will come up later, number one, Dame and Luka 2 and 3. They would. That was the echelon of the point guards at that time. His ability out pick and roll, the way he bent defenses. I've always been of the opinion he has the deepest range in NBA history. That's my opinion. Just his comfortability out to 35 feet is something I've never seen before. The way that can stretch defenses, all of that stuff. The issue is I'm not as high on his playmaking and on-ball playmaking, decision-making as some other people. I think he can get sped up. I don't think he plays with great pace. And then defensively, he's quite bad. So I'll say that he's quite bad. So that alongside the earlier years that I wasn't as high on, I know he came into the league a good player, but being a good player wasn't enough to crack this list. So the early years not being as high on, the bad defense, and then some questions about decision making ultimately led with me favoring my number 10. But I do think Dame was a good mention, and I respect Dream for having him on the list at 9. Now Rajon Rondo. Can any of you guys make the case for why Rondo could be top 10?
The only thing that I could hear somebody or visualize somebody saying is he won a championship as the lead point guard for the Boston Celtics in 2008 with a big three that was at the tail end of their prime but still good. And then again in 2020, he was a vital piece in helping set the tempo for that 2020 Lakers team, whether he was coming off the bench or in the starting lineup. There was never a moment, unless Frank Vogel or like just had those weird lineups where you would have your backcourt just basically couldn't shoot. But Rondo basically, for the most part, was a very vital role in helping that 2020 team, like I said, keep the pace throughout the postseason, throughout the regular season, and even in the NBA Finals. He wasn't like his role on the team wasn't the same as what J.R. Smith's role on that team was. If that makes sense. So that's the only thing that I could hear. The only thing. Anything else, there's nothing to say. There's genuinely
he is one of the best passers in NBA history.
He is.
He
is one of the best defenders that will be mentioned today. Those things are important. Defense and passing. One could argue at a point guard position, those two might be very important.
The purity of the position.
But yes, he can move that rock.
In both of those things. Top 5 in both of those things. But I think Rondo is one of the smartest players I've ever seen. I think his ability, when you don't have scoring gravity, I think that ultimately hurts your impact as a player because ultimately your playmaking can get nullified by that. But being able to overcome that in the way Rondo was able to, whether his ability to eat up space downhill when teams aren't guarding him out there, or just being able to quarterback and pick apart defenses when they aren't guarding him, or forcing defenses to guard him because of his ability to do that. And then he was able to get into the paint. He was really good in transition. Yeah. And then he did so many little things. Like he could rebound like crazy. He was hustling. He was diving on the floor. His defense was really, really good. He had some of the longest arms I've ever seen for someone his size. It was crazy.
Big hands.
Now, ultimately, I never even considered him for the list.
Yep.
I never considered him for the list. I want to make that clear. But Rondo was a really, really good player. So I want to give Rondo his credit. I did want
to ask you this question. Do you think that what about those years? Because for me, it was always weird because I always acknowledged Rondo, even in the years post him leaving Boston. But I was always like, yeah, if I had to just go spitballing, point guards that are very, very good, Rondo was always in that mix, even when he was with the Pelicans or the Mavs. But those years are very interesting in Rondo's career because despite all of those things that Mars just said that were true about who he was as a player, he was in certain situations that he really couldn't help raise the ceiling. And that might have been an issue due to, teammates or coaching or whatever. But some of those instances, it was Rondo going
I
at
think
coaches or going at front.
look,
What I'm saying? Like,
Dallas
so
was
that's why
Dallas
his
was
careers kind
Dallas
of
and
weird. to me.
Sacramento was shaky. Dallas was
Yeah,
very
yeah.
shaky.
Mm-hmm.
Very shaky.
But I think you
That was
look
the
at
one.
what he was doing like the early 2010s in Boston, like 2012. He fried the Heat. Like he went crazy
Yeah.
against the Heat. Then you got when he was in Chicago, they went up 2-0 against the Celtics. Then Rondo goes down, and then they ultimately ends up just not winning another game. In New Orleans, I remember when they beat the Blazers, it was playoff Rondo. He might have had a 20-20 game in that series. I might, or just a 20 assist game. He might have had like 5 points.
It was,
but like
something crazy
he
like
went
that,
crazy.
yeah.
So like the playoff Rondo thing was a real conversation. It was a narrative. So like when you look at it from that standpoint, it's like Rondo did get better in the playoffs, I guess. So like I can't talk myself into getting him on the list. I'm gonna be honest. Shout out to Ox. I knew Ox was gonna have Rondo on the list somewhere. He had him at 9. He ended up getting him tied. What was it? 13th, I think. Yeah, tied 13th. But ultimately, 2 points was not even particularly close.
I think the strongest argument is like just like how we tried to do a pure score. You know what I'm saying? If you go into a pure point guard list, and if you try to view it through that aspect, and then again, one of the better two-way PGs, and then as far as like the skill of passing, I do think I have him way up there. Like as far just not playmaking, but just throwing dimes. Like Rondo was one of them ones. You know what I'm saying? And even in 2020, like ZZ brought up, the relationship and rapport that he had with Anthony Davis was incredible. And some of the passes he would execute with him were insane. So, passing, defense, pure point guard. And then you could argue this archetype of guard that maybe we would all say is a little bit better in each area is definitively in everybody's top 10 list too. So it's not like this archetype.
We'll find out. We don't know. We'll find out. On to number 11, the first person to miss out on the top 10. They ended up with 14 points, so 2 more points than Walt Frazier. This is a player that I want to make sure I get this. I know Real Talk had him on the list. Real Talk, you are the only one up here who had him on the list. That is Gary Payton. Real Talk. Talk to me. Gary Payton. You had him at number 10. Talk to me.
Wow. I think that his defensive value obviously carried out through a number of years. Definitely had a few years as an offensive player that I do think get a little slept on. You know what I'm saying? He had a few popping years. Gary Payton did as an offensive player, like 24, a couple years, 22. You know what I'm saying? Like 9 to assists or whatnot. So the longevity, you know what I'm saying? I think he did he put together a good amount of years. I think his peak was pretty solid as well. And the two-way value, you know what I'm saying? I'm going to favor two-way value, most of the time. And I think he was good enough to secure a spot on the list for sure.
You think he's the best defensive point guard ever? Without saying the other candidates, do you think he's the best?
No, but I do think he's like top 3 for sure.
I would agree with top 3. So I'd assume you'd probably have him second. Oh, Drew Holiday. Okay. I forgot about him because he's not going to make the list. Of the guys who have the potential to make the list, is he the best?
For me, no.
Second?
Yeah.
Okay. I understand that. Me personally, I think Walt Frazier was better. So if it comes down to it, I think Walt Frazier was the better defensive player. I think he was the better offensive player. So me personally, it was like, I'm going to go with a better defensive and offensive player. That's how I'm going to go with it. But Gary Payton, someone who I think, because of how well known he is for his defense, I'm with you. I think his offense does get understated. He wasn't just a defensive point guard. He wasn't Mookie Blaylock. Like, he was a
Yeah.
legitimate. And these Seattle teams had good offenses for a stretch of years
Yeah.
as well. This was Gary Payton being the point guard, the initiator for elite offenses in the NBA for a stretch of years. Now, Sean Kemp had something to do with that as well. But Gary Payton being someone who you could rely on to score, could get to the rim, could make mid-range jumpers, wasn't much of a threat from three in terms of like consistently out there, but it was the 90s, man. Who cares? So I do like Gary Payton. I just thought, if I had to guess, I'd assume I would have had him at 11. Like, he would have been the first guy off. I always struggle with him or number 10, and I ultimately favored number 10 today. Him, Dame, and my number 10. Maybe another name out there, but I'm not as high on that guy. ZZ, why did you not have Gary Payton?
He kind of fell into that like void of interchangeability for me. Like I said, when I look at the top 10, especially for positions, it gets to a point after like number 5 where shit gets murky for me. And it's like, I'll wake up one day and I'm like, yeah, you're right. Maybe I'll sit back, I'll see an old clip of him going off and think, damn, he did have an offensive bag too. You only hear, like you said, you only hear about the defensive things and why he is considered at least within the top 2 for best defenders at the point guard spot for majority of people. So he falls into that void, unfortunately, because a lot of the guys on my list had years where, like we talked about all NBA earlier, a lot of the guys on my list have years where they're top 7 in MVP or, you know, all NBA firsts, right? And for Gary, it sucks because a lot of the times it was like, who is he going up against, whether it be Stockton or Jordan for like the position itself. But like, for me, you have to be at least top 5, top 6 range for a decent amount, or your peak has to extend beyond just like enough to win a championship or something, which he was able to do in a lesser role than what he was when he was in Seattle. But, you know, it just wasn't the same. Just didn't really hit for me enough to be like, yeah, boom, I'll keep him right here.
Roto, did you weigh his championship at all in your evaluation?
No. Didn't think about it, not one iota. No.
Okay. I think so. I'm doing a bad job hosting. I feel like it is relevant that I should say where people had these guys on the list. It was easy for Luka and SGA because only one person had them. But for Walt Frazier, I had him at 9. John D had him at 7. Lowe had him at 10. Carson had him at 8. And Sean from the Hoop Venue podcast had him at 9. Those were the only people that had him that got to his 12 points. And for Gary Payton, Lowe had him at 8. Real Talk, as we have said, had him at 10. Chilltown had him at 10. Ox had him at 10. Ron had him at 9. Pirate had him at 8. And Penn had him at 8. That was the 14 points he got. If you haven't figured it out, first place 10 points, 10th place 1 point. That's how it goes. So that's everyone who had Gary Payton. John D, is there anything you want to say about Gary Payton before we get into the official top 10?
I based a lot of my ranking on like, not a lot, I wouldn't say like a lot of it, but I based a good portion of it on advantage creation. I think a lot of these guards on my list created advantages for their team to have court in transition a little bit more than Gary Payton would. I can understand Gary Payton was a better offensive player than people give credit for.
There's one name I'm looking at on your list, a bit shaky, but I'm gonna let it go.
I may know who you're talking about, but we're gonna keep.
You know who I'm talking about.
But yeah, I couldn't put Gary Payton above anybody in my top 10.
Okay. We are now on to number 10. The official top 10 starts now. 40 minutes in. We are officially at the top 10. Welcome to the 277 people in here. This is what you have been waiting for. The top 10 begins now. At number 10, this is a major jump in points. Gary Payton was in 11 with 14 points. Number 10 has 37. So really it was the 10 and everyone else. It wasn't particularly close. Before I reveal the name, I had this person at 10. John D did not have them on the list. ZZ had him at 8. Real Talk had him at 8. And then that's it for the panel up here. But outside of that, Lowe had him at 9. Tyler, Hoop Venue, had him at 10. Ron had him at 4. KB had him at 9. Pirate had him at 10. Gifted had him at 7. Penn did not have him on the list. Riv had him at 7. Carson did not have him on the list. The Dream had him at 7. Swiper had him at 10. Jordan had him at 8. And Sean had him at 10. So ultimately, he missed out on 3 lists because Chilltown did not have him. John D did not have him. And Penn did not have him. Oh, and Ox. Ox did not have him either. So Carson, Penn, Ox, Chill, and John D. If you haven't figured it out by now, that name is Russell Westbrook. That name,
John D, you didn't have him on the list?
That name is Russell Westbrook. Since us 3 had him on the list, normally we start with us talking about why we had him. John D, why did you not?
Russ is a fantastic player. He's a great player. Maybe I'm not as high on Russ as other people are. Well, evidently,
you just said advantage creation. I'm just saying.
I mean, yeah, I get that. I just think Russ being able to play in transition and get downhill, I think that's valuable. What I looked at with Russ is how do you basically build around Russ to where you can have like a top tier team or a top tier offense. I think a lot has to come with Russ when you bring him onto the team. I think you have to move a lot of things around. For example, in 2020, the Rockets had to create more space for Russell Westbrook to play with James Harden, and that led to, I know there was more like contributing factors, but a lot of that led to Clint Capella leaving and having to play like PJ Tucker and Rob Covington at their as their front court, or KD and Russ not necessarily meshing the best you would want them to, because Russ sticks to the ball a lot. He needs the ball to succeed. And a lot of that, just the portability on offense, is what really kept me away from having him on the top 10.
Okay.
Luka Doncic at 9.
I think Luka Doncic clears Russell Westbrook on offense.
Yeah, no, that's fine.
so.
That's fine. I'm not here to say Russell Westbrook's a better player than Luka Doncic. I'm saying the flaws that you're outlining. Yeah. And then the longevity gap is
100%. I just think Luka is a much better playmaker and scorer. Like you can. I would
Who creates more advantages in your opinion?
In transition, in the downhill ability, I would say Russ. But as a scorer in the mid range with his back to the basket in the pick and roll, I'm gonna go with Luka.
You think Luka creates more advantages than Russell Westbrook?
As a passer, as a pick and roll player, yes. I think Luka's a better passer. I think
Luka's
a better scorer. That's advantage creation as well.
I could get with the logic of, like, the way John D put it, I like, where he said, if Russ is in transition or attacking downhill, give me Russ. But if you got a back to the basket situation, or you have one of these players who's going to manipulate the defender who's stuck in the pick and roll the best, with their ability to either pull up in their face or step back and create a shot for themselves, and it has a high probability of going in, Luka. Or if we are factoring in Russ's peak, because there was a point in time where Russ's mid-range was automatic. I'd say when he was winning MVP in that 2016 season, I remember if he was pulling up from mid-range, he had enough spring to get that shit right in the back of the rim. So Russ was automatic at that point. And in those moments, he was the best at that of maneuver. Like Steph couldn't do it as well as Russ could at that specific moment in time. But then things changed. I remember the argument that I had for Russ back then when he was still, even when the Kevin Durant days in OKC, the argument that I would always have with myself was Russ is so athletic. He's probably the most athletic point guard ever. But the day he loses those springs, what will he have to fall back on? Look at a player like Chris Paul. For his height and his stature, to be able to play 20 years and contribute to winning basketball practically everywhere that he's been to, and he's been on a lot of teams, but to still but knowing that he lost his step 7 years ago, would still had to figure out a way to pull something up to be able to will a Phoenix Suns team into the NBA Finals, right? But with Chris Paul, and what differentiates him from Russ is he always had a reliable elbow mid-range. Since 2005, Russ, his mid-range started to slip. And then, the playmaking ideology and all that is still there. Him in transition is still a dangerous man, right? But once he lost that spring, it was like he was more prone to the bobblehead turnovers. Turnovers started to hit a little bit harder. So I still have Russ on my list because I factor in the MVP, the triple doubles, 2 scoring titles. As a point guard, you get my respect. And I will always give Russ respect for what happened in 2018. against the Utah Jazz in that closeout game, because it was a situation in which Sam Presti said, okay, we saw you win an MVP with the best corner option that we could find was Andre Roberson and shit. And we gave you Steven Adams still, so you were able to get some useful minutes out of him. But we'll give you Paul George and Carmelo Anthony. And then Russ is the only one that wants to show up for work in an elimination game against an up-and-coming led Utah Jazz team. In that moment, I was like, what can you can't blame Russ for that, right? So all of that basically led me to say I can't leave him off this list. He was low. I thought that I would have him higher. I honestly, going into the list, I thought that I would have him at like 7, but he ended up at 8 for me because I was, Jerry West and shit. But like, yeah,
one spot. I mean,
if
you leave out Ron, because Ron went crazy. Ron had him at 4. Shout out to Ron.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
8 is the highest he was. 8.
Okay.
Yeah. 8 is the highest he was. And you and Real Talk both had him at 8. So you gave your spiel. Real Talk. Russ at 8. Why?
Russell Westbrook is one of the most interesting players I think I've ever watched in my entire life. Like, honestly, because we had a similar conversation recently, Mars, like when we were talking about Kevin Durant and Kevin Durant being like the best scorer, and that meaning something other than just like the diversity of the scoring, and like you can go into the nuances of scoring. When we just say like, oh yeah, Russ is the greatest athlete at the point guard position we've ever seen, like that's a lot of value for him. And even though that comes with a lot of, mistakes, John D, you know what I'm saying? I get it, you know what I'm saying? It comes with a lot of, you know what I'm saying? A lot of bonehead mistakes. But I do think that he conjured up enough skill to tandem with his athleticism, especially during his prime and peak years, to where it's just undeniable the talent that Russell Westbrook was. He could just physically overwhelm his opponents. Him being like 6'4", 6'5", and for a long time being one of the strongest at the position, could play out the post. One of the most explosive athletes as far as, even if you're in drop in the pick and roll, he can get to the rim. There are years, I wouldn't say automatic, to the extent ZZ said, but there wasn't some years where that pull-up midi was a viable option for him. Like he could hit that shot at a pretty decent clip, especially, using that as a counter for all the rim pressure that he could apply. One of the best passers and playmakers that we've seen also. Well, let me not say passers, but definitely one of the better playmakers we've seen at the position ever. Amazing talent. And then he could also tap into some of that defensive prowess that he came into the league with. I don't know if, coming out of UCLA, Russ was known as a defensive guard. They had to develop offensively. And I think also during this peak and prime, he showed there were times where he could be a pest on the ball, you know what I'm saying? Be absolutely terroristic. And then even on the Lakers, he could guard some bigger wings for us. We used to match him up with like Julius Randle, and he used to do well in those kind of situations. So
I will say, out of everybody that I've seen guard Kevin Durant since he left Oklahoma City, Russell Westbrook might be the best one. Like, genuinely, like he know all his niggas' moves. Like, genuinely.
I do want to ask y'all, did y'all factor in accolades in any capacity doing a greatest list?
Yeah.
Not really.
No.
In some capacity.
Yeah, not really.
That's what makes it interesting. Everyone does things differently.
Yeah, they have their own criteria.
Yeah. So you get Rondo at 9. Like, it's just everyone does their own thing. Me personally, no, I don't do the accolade thing. I'm just looking at how good of a player you were, and then I'm arbitrarily coming up with whose career do I think provided more value. It's just there's no science to it. It's not, oh well, this guy played for 14 years, this guy played for 11. Oh, he has to be higher. Like,
right. Yeah.
I came up with it.
When you know, you know.
When you know. I did have Russell Westbrook at 10. I spoke about it a little bit in the Dame segment. He was the one I was going back and forth with, him, Gary Payton. I favored Russ because I do think offensively he was just something that I agree with you when you said he's one of the weirdest players you've ever had to watch.
Mhm.
Like, when it's all clicking, he looks like maybe the best point guard that's ever existed.
Yes.
Because you can't stay in front of him. You can't stop him from getting to the rim. And then when he does get to the rim, he has such great feel for lay down passes and kick out passes. He's creating the most advantageous shots in the NBA at will. Like, he's creating open
6'4",
threes.
6'5" LeBron. Like
Yeah.
dead ass. Like
Yeah.
that's
100%.
pretty much what
Yeah,
it is.
you could say
when
that.
it's
Yep.
But then when it's going wrong,
yeah.
it's like
Yeah.
he should be nowhere near these lists. And I
Mhm.
think the last few years post Wizards Russ have really soured like the taste for a lot of people on his all-time standing, because the Lakers obviously didn't work out, and then he's been going around from the Clippers to the Nuggets, etc. And now he's kind of just a role player who you hope can contribute in the playoffs, but you don't want the ball in his hands a whole lot. But then when he's off the ball, he's not as valuable. So there's a tough fit for him now. But when Russell Westbrook was at his apex, in his prime, we're looking 2011, 2012, all the way to 2019-ish. I think once the scoring started falling off a cliff, I'm looking at 2019.
Yeah.
He entered the second phase of his career where you had to try and make him fit, and it became tougher. But the years where he could be your primary ball handler, there's a reason OKC had elite offenses with Russell Westbrook and Kevin Durant. It wasn't just because of Kevin Durant. It was Russell Westbrook too. And I said in the 2016 playoffs, when they got to the conference finals, I think that it was Russell Westbrook who was playing the best in that postseason. That doesn't mean I think he was a better player than Kevin Durant, but in that postseason against the Mavs, against the Spurs, coming up to the Warriors series, I think he was the most important, most valuable player in that postseason run because of his playmaking. I disagree with John D about Luka creating more advantages. I don't know if there was anyone in the league who created more advantages than Russell Westbrook at that time. Not saying he was the best playmaker in the league, because you have to do something with those advantages, and sometimes he would throw it to the 17th row. But in terms of just creating an advantage, being that initial domino, knocking down the first domino, Russell Westbrook was something I'd never seen before. And there were years where, he was knocking down that mid-range. And he could get to the rim whenever he wanted. And I've had like an epiphany in recent times where getting to the rim a whole lot is way more important than like being more efficient at the rim. Does that make
Making
sense?
shots.
Yeah, like hypothetically, player A gets to the rim 12 times a game, but they only shoot like 58% of the rim. Player B gets to the rim 6 times a game and shoots 68%. I want the guy who gets to the rim 12 times a game, because like I understand he's less efficient at the rim, but at the end of the day, 58% at the rim is still very efficient offense, as opposed to the guy who's getting there half as much and is more efficient, but over the course of a game, the other guy's generating more points because he's getting more shots at the rim. And Russell Westbrook was the king of that. He was never the most efficient at the rim. Like, in fact, his touch was actually quite questionable. But when you get there that much, you're ultimately gonna be impactful. And I think that's what Russell Westbrook was. So I'm going to have I had Russell Westbrook at 10. I couldn't get him any higher. I couldn't get him any higher because of the flaws. But I do understand the case to have him 8. Ron, I think, was going a bit crazy, but shout out to Ron.
Real quick,
go ahead.
That what you were just talking about is something that made me like, after this playoff run, I'm really high on like Anthony Edwards. And I know there's some efficiency problems there, but just like you were like, I was like comparing him to Kevin Durant, who's obviously a better shot maker, but the way that teams just like think that they have to guard Anthony Edwards with that much gap help, because he is a special athlete with his first step, and his ability to just consistently have a threat of being able to beat his man one-on-one over and over and over again off the dribble just creates a lot of havoc. And then he is starting to make some of the passes out of those situations, but like he puts so much tension on the defense. I saw it against us for sure, John D. I know you saw it. And then he was getting he was garnering a lot of attention from OKC. Like OKC wasn't guarding Halliburton, in my opinion, like they were guarding Anthony Edwards.
Yeah, I think one of the biggest things was the added 3-point shooting, because now it's like you can't just sag off because he's a 40% three-point shooter now. He's one of the best pull-up three-point shooters in the league, and he shoots off the catch as well. So he had moments in the playoffs where it's like, okay, I'm just gonna lull you to sleep, and either I'm gonna pull up or I'm gonna drive right past you because you don't know which one I'm gonna do. Both of them are really effective. So being able to get into the teeth of the defense like he did in LA, because we didn't have the point of attack defense, just being able to get to the rim and get to the paint consistently, it makes the passing easier. You know, being able to consistently put pressure on the defense makes passing easier. Being a better scorer makes passing easier. So I think he's definitely going to pick up the playmaking that he's been struggling with over some stretches of his playoff career.
Before we move on, I want to address drink more water. He said, I might still take the 68%. Do you need to collapse to the 58% player? Yes, you do. Because A, if you don't, 58% will go up, obviously. But B, 58% at the rim, let's get analytical, is 1.16 points per possession. That's the equivalent of a 38% three-point shooter. That's the equivalent of Kevin Durant mid-range plus like 4%. Like at the rim, it's not a good percentage. 58%, you'd rather be 70%. But the issue is at the rim or mid-range is still a 2-point shot. Yeah, it's still a 2-point shot. So if you are able to generate a 58% shot at the rim whenever you want, that's hyper efficient offense. So if you are able to get to the paint whenever you want, you have to collapse on that. It's basketball 101. You can't just be like, well, he's not that efficient at the rim. Yeah, he's not that efficient at the rim, so he just won't help. No, that's a bad philosophy. So yes, that's why I'm high on guys like Russell Westbrook, etc., etc. But that is our number 10. At number 9, there was another minor jump, 11 more points. So from 37 for us to 48 for this individual. I had him at 8. John D did not have him. Lowe did not have him. ZZ had him at 9. Tyler from Hoop Venue had him at 8. Chill had him at 5. Real Talk had him at 9. Ox had him at 5. I think that's 5. Was that no? Ox had him at 6. Ron had him at 3. KB had him at 10. Pirate had him at 5. Gifted had him at 10. Penn had him at 7. Riv, Carson, and Dream had him at 10. Swiper and Jordan had him at 9. And Sean did not have him. This is the one, the only all-time assist leader, all-time steals leader, John Stockton. I didn't expect myself to have him the highest of all of us, but here we are. But John D, once again, you were the one who did not have him. Talk to us. Why did John Stockton not make the list?
John Stockton's a great player. I wasn't as high on his passing as much as the assist would lead it. Like, yes, he's a good passer. He's good out of the pick and roll. He's a good entry passer. He gets the ball and creates advantages for his players. But I don't think it's to the level. I don't think it's to the level of my 9 or 10.
You want to repeat your 9 or 10 for the chat?
Luka and SGA.
So I want to make sure that we're on the same page. 3 years of SGA outweighs John Stockton's whole career, is what you're saying.
I think he's at the level. Yeah, I think he's at the level. I think SGA is at. I think SGA has reached a top tier level of offense. And I think, yes, it's this year, but last year he was also like really good offensively in the half court. And I think the year before that he was still really good offensively in the half court. I think people don't talk about how good he is in isolation and as a driver. Like, this is not me just comparing it to the league right now, but this is definitely this is all time, in my opinion. Like, I think SGA is an all-time driver, all-time isolation player, and all-time mid-range shooter, to where that brings a lot of value offensively.
If I gave you 2 options, you get the last 3 years of SGA to build around to do what you want, or you get 20 years of John Stockton to build around, do what you want. You're choosing the SGA option?
Yeah.
I was about to say, John D said he was that good.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm getting 3 years of the best scorer in the league. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting.
The best all 3 years?
Well, I wouldn't say he's the best all 3 years, but the third year he was the best scorer in the league. And then last year I could argue he's the top 5 scorer in the league.
Yeah. Like, top 5 is a big difference from the best. I'm just saying.
Yeah, I get that, but I'm just saying, like, I think with SGA having that scoring, I think that's really valuable.
I don't agree. I'll say it again. I didn't expect to have John Stockton the highest here.
Where did you have him?
8.
Oh, you were one spot.
I was
yeah,
one.
Yeah. You was one spot off, but I had him the highest. I did try to get Chilltown on for today, but ultimately he doesn't work on Sundays, and I can respect that. Take the day off, man. So he had him at 5. Ron had him at 3. Pirate had him at 5. And they are the highest. Those 3 were the highest. Everyone else is ranging from 6 through 10. But the reason I had John Stockton at 8 was the longevity. I think that's extremely valuable. Although I don't think he peaked as high as the names we've said so far. I don't think he peaked higher than Walt Frazier. I don't think he peaked higher than Russell Westbrook. I don't think he peaked higher than SGA or Luka or Dame. Or who else have we said today? Let me check. Oh, the other one's Rondo. Gary Payton. Gary Payton, I'll have that conversation. And then Rondo, he got Rondo. The longevity is something that I think is extremely impressive. Although, like, let's say his peak, throwing numbers out there, they're not the exact number. Let's say his peak is 85% of some of the guys that have been named or that will come up. Being able to sustain that level of production for 10, 15 years and then be really impactful for another 5 years after that is valuable to me. That gives you so many bites at the apple, bites at the cherry, whatever you want to call it, in terms of building a championship team. And he never missed games. Like, so it's not just, he was really good for this many years. He was really good for this many years, and he played 82 games a year.
Right.
So when you look at that, that's what led me to the value. And then I think one thing that going back and watching John Stockton, the one thing that moved me a lot was the screen setting. It's gonna sound weird. I'm talking about point guard. I'm talking about screen setting, but his ability within the Jazz offense because I don't think he was creating many advantages with the ball at that point. We're talking about late 90s now, but his ability to create advantages with screens, whether that's flex screens to get number 32 a post up, or that's a down screen to get Jeff Hornacek open, and then he's coming off that screen and he's curling around to then get a DHO. Like, he wasn't creating advantages, but his movement and his constant activity helped manufacture advantages. And then he could pass. And then you got young John Stockton, who was creating advantages, especially in transition. And that's someone who I think does get understated because the Jazz didn't have a whole bunch of success. But young John Stockton, when he was a scoring threat and he was aggressive, I do think that was a really, really good player. And then defensively, he was aggressive. He hounded people. He was physical, quite dirty. I think he was really good. Like, and so the biggest thing for me is longevity. And then it's all of the intangible skills, the stuff that don't show up on the box score. I'm not as high on the box score stuff with John Stockton. The assist averages, I don't care. It's the stuff that goes beyond that is something I'm really high on. So that's why I had John Stockton at 8. But you guys had him at 9. What was the thought process behind that?
You and Lowe have done irreparable damage to John Stockton.
Blame me. First of all,
I do want you to know that.
I just make that clear. Lowe left him off the list. I had him on the list. I just want to make that
you
clear.
have him on the list, but still, what you say
above you, by the way, above you.
Yes, but usually aligns with what Lowe be saying about bro. I actually recently just watched a early 90s John Stockton game. And actually what's actually hilarious is the commentator brought up, look at the screen that John Stockton said.
Oh, for real?
Yeah.
Nice.
I'm dead serious. But yeah, definitely underrated as a dribble penetration guy, in my opinion, especially in those early days, early 90s days. Had a little left to right crossover. I was saying, okay, little, yeah. And definitely, I think understated as a passer, just his skill of passing. He made a couple of incredible passes that game. I was like, oh, okay, look at John. And then if John D actually, he liked the point of picking up, especially during that time, like picking up guards, making entry passes hard and stuff like that. Like John Stockton was going to pick you up. He was going to turn you. He was going to be into you. You know what I'm saying? Give you a lot of ball pressure, and be a solid defender. So definition of like two-way viability at the point guard position.
ZZ.
Yeah, for me, the longevity was the biggest beneficiating factor for John. And the second thing was, like Mars said, the fact that he never missed games. And it was a habit. It was a constant. He was always there. For the era that he played in, where honestly, people that are on the fence of we're done with the 90s, that era is looking like the best one in terms of reliability of players, aging gracefully. That's an era that's looked back on now where it's like playing 80 games is not a chore. That's like expected. Even the best of the best and the best of the best teams are doing this. John Stockton playing 19 years, averaging out to, what would you say, Mars, like what, 72 games a year maybe for his career, something like that.
Yeah, 'cause
Impressive enough.
he only really missed games. I think it was the 98 season where he missed games.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go through his game log. I have it right here.
Okay,
He came into
cool.
the league 82, 82, 82, 82, 82, 78, 82, 82, 82, 82, 82, 82, 82, 64.
78.
That was the game he missed. That was the year he missed 98. And then it was 50, but that was the lockout season. So he played every game again. That was 50 of 50. 82, 82, 82, 82. So in his career, John Stockton missed 20 games. No, 22 games.
Jesus Christ.
John Stockton missed 22 games in his career, and he played for, what is that, 19 years?
Yes, 19 years. So for me, off rip, it wasn't just about
That's
the
actually-
assist numbers.
that's what I
that's
wanna
impressive
respect.
as hell. You cannot like in any way, shape, or form degrade that in any way. For me,
6'1", 170, by the way.
yes,
in this
yes.
physical
and
era.
and he doesn't get enough credit for being a bucket in college, but that's either here nor there. For me, it wasn't just about the fact that he ran away with the assist record or how many, or the same thing with the steals record. Like that's easy. But the longevity and the consistency of being there while helping this team, he did hit a big shot to send him to the NBA Finals one year as well.
97
like
against Houston.
97, yeah. So it's like he has so many moments in and of himself as just a Utah Jazz great, all-time great point guard, outside of just the numbers that make you say, okay, this is why he is considered to be one of the best point guards ever. And in whatever way you want to look at it. But he had done too much for me to leave him off of a top 10 point guard list, personally. May not be as high on him as I was in recent years. Probably 6 years ago, if you asked me, he would have been 4 or 5 range. Over the years, maybe because of the Mars and Low propaganda, it went down. I don't know. But like, over the years, I did have to take a look back and think about all these other guys that are on my list and, peak years and things like that, MVPs, take different things into consideration. But he still makes my list. He still cracks my list.
Just to defend myself real quick.
Go ahead.
My pushback against the Stockton stuff has been about people not watching the games and just saying he's all-time assist leader, all-time steals leader. He's blah, blah, blah.
Mm-hmm.
If you watch John Stockton play and you think he's a top 5 point guard and you can tell me, oh, it's because he does this, this, and this, I'll hear you out. I probably won't agree, but I'll listen to it. But when you tell me that John Stockton has to be top 5, and then you're telling me about a bunch of stuff, and then you can't tell me how the man plays, that's what I've been pushing back against for years.
Okay.
I'm not as high. I have issues with John Stockton. It comes from I do think the playmaking has been overstated because of the assist numbers, but I do think he was a really good player. Low, I can't speak for him. I just think he thinks John Stockton actually wasn't that good. I think John Stockton was really good. I just think his basketball reference page probably overstates how good he is to the people who haven't actually watched him. But if you go back and watch him and you still think he is top 5, top 3, wherever you have him, that's your prerogative. I always say, don't just listen to what I say about these guys. Watch them for yourself and form your own opinion. Whether that agrees or disagrees with me, that's fine. I just want you to watch the games for yourself. And I watched the games for myself, and I got with 8. I got him at 8. That's where I got him, which is higher than all of you guys. So shut up. Before we move on to number 8, the official number 8, we do have some super chats. K. Dot said John Stockton is like the Frank Gore of the NBA.
That's a very good
49ers running back, very, very consistent at his position. He was a bulldozer, man. He was a bulldozer. It's like every other play, 7-yard gain. Every other play, 9-yard gain, breaking tackles. He's one of those guys that you just really struggle to get down consistently. Frank Gore
that's praise. Saying he's Frank Gore, that's praise.
Just the consistency, yeah. I would say the consistency.
But it's like backhanded though, because it's like praise you because you were like a little above mid all the time. Like that's what it comes across as.
Crazy,
like,
bro.
You brought your lunch pallet every day to the I guess. Like, yeah, sure. But Frank Gore was good and John Stockton was good too.
Brax told you to keep cooking, John D. So he's rocking with your Russell Westbrook hate and your John Stockton hate. Good work. Couple super chats about some guys who didn't make the list, and now's a good time to talk about them. Drink More Water said he won't make the cut, but I do want to acknowledge Mark Price. I believed he helped pave the way for some of the point guards that are on these lists today. Truly will be a forgotten player as current point guards rise. This is something I wholeheartedly agree with. I think he was Steve Nash before Steve Nash. That's the comparison I've given him. Steve Nash will show up at some point on this list, maybe sometime soon. I think when it comes to splitting pick and rolls, that's a Jordan thing out there. Jordan might be watching this, like, oh, here he goes talking about these runs. When it comes to splitting pick and rolls, I don't know if I've seen anyone better than Mark Price. His ability, he was tiny. He was like 6'1", maybe 6 foot.
Yeah.
So he was just fitting through tiny nooks and crannies. His handle was elite. He was one of the best shooters in the league at the time. His pull-up jumper was elite. His playmaking was elite. Defensively, he was not good. But offensively, he was very crafty, smart, all the white superlatives. He fit them. And I think that Cleveland team had a really good offense for a really good stretch of years in the early 90s, and a large part because of Mark Price. I'm very high on Mark Price. I advise anyone who hasn't to go and watch Mark Price. He's very modern game. Absolutely love Mark Price.
Would you say he was good, great, or elite for his time?
Elite. I think he was one of the elite point guards in the NBA, the early 90s. Someone else who was an elite point guard in the NBA, Penny Hardaway. No longer Gabe said Penny had top 3 all-time point guard potential. Who's a guard 24 or younger you can say has top 10 all-time point guard potential? Cade. I don't think any of them. I wouldn't expect any of them to be top 10. Potential, maybe, I don't know, but
Rose.
Based on who's at my 10 spot right now. So basically, what 24 or younger point guard? What 24 or younger point guard has the potential to be higher than Westbrook all time? Is basically the question you're asking me. Yeah, I'm not gonna.
Yeah, in the league right now.
Yeah, 24 and younger. For you, it would be Gary Payton.
Wait, Gary Payton.
Yeah, because you have him at 10. So which point guard, 24 and younger?
Oh, it has to be better than Gary. Oh, yeah, Payton? Yeah. Okay, yeah. I see what you're saying. I think Cade has an outside chance of getting there.
It's a long shot. I'll say that.
It's a long shot, but
maybe Cade, maybe Dylan Harper, Darren Peterson in next year's draft.
Did y'all like Dylan Harper in this game?
I think the skill set that he, like his ability to get to the rim, get paint touches, finish, all of that stuff shone. Some defensive plays that I really liked. So
yeah, I was like, whoa.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Anyone could give effort for one game. Go see it 82. But so that was interesting. But yeah, it's tough to say that. But Penny is someone who I think was special. I think he was a top 10 player in the league for that stretch from like 95 to like 97, 98, whatever. But ultimately, no longevity, couldn't make the list. But very high on Penny. And then No Longer Gabe said another super chat. At what point would you not care for efficient scoring? Does it really matter in the playoffs if a guy's getting 30 a game?
I
I
think
mean, the extremes of like if you're taking 60 shots to score 30, of course not. But like within reason, I kind of just need points. I'm gonna be honest.
Somebody
I
said
kind
it
of just need
best.
points.
Somebody said it best on the panel one time. I don't know. It might have been Penn, but it's like if you're a superstar player, right? Like, and you're giving me superstar numbers throughout 82 game regular season. The expectation isn't necessary. Like, take Shea for example. I'm not expecting Shea to go from averaging 32 a game to 34 a game. If he did, it'd be cool. But if he's averaging an efficient 28 in the postseason, knowing that the game slows down, knowing that the whistle becomes a little bit more quiet in certain areas, like these are all things you would have to contextualize. But if the efficiency's there and it's a consistent effort, like if it's a consistent 28, or in Shea's case, it would be 30, because that he's Shea is one of those players, at least this season. I bet you on most betting sites where at least 30, he can get you that. Even if it's a bad night, the free throws will catch up eventually. He's gonna get to at least 30.
nah, for real, you gonna get them.
You know what I'm saying? It's like
That man Shea will be 8 for 25. You look up 29 points. Like, okay.
It's like, but yeah, if it's, and in those instances where you could say like, oh, it was a bad game overall, as long as his efficiency, if he's averaging 28, as long as he's not shooting 44% from the field or less for a player of his caliber, then yeah, it's all about the context though, and like the nuances and stuff.
I think it depends on the series, the opponent,
Yeah,
and then what your team. Like, I guess we'll use Shea as the example because he had a lot of inefficient games, up and down games. The Memphis series was just bad. I'm not going to excuse that one. He was just bad in that series. But like throughout the playoffs, Denver series, Indiana, etc. I'm living with Shea shooting 27 shots before we're seeing Lou Dort shoot 12.
Yeah,
agreed.
Like, and it's not just we want to live and die, but it's like the shots Shea creates over the course of a game are going to put more pressure on the defense than Lou Dort catch and shoot threes. Sure. Like, so I'm willing to live with him taking maybe a couple ill-advised ones here and there, missing a couple bunnies that he's not used to making. But if he's staying aggressive and he's putting the pressure on the defense he needs to put on, that's going to come with shots, but that's also going to come with creating opportunities. The issue I had with Shea was less about the missing shots and was more about the fact that he just went away from playmaking completely in certain games. Like, if he's able to maintain that aggression and then is also creating, that's where you can live with the percentages. But when he's having the games where he's not making shots and then he's just refusing to pass the ball, then you start running into the problems. So for me, it's about finding the balance between scoring and playmaking, but also not compromising your aggression to do that. And I think Shea struggled with that at times.
I think Anthony Edwards showed a really good. I think this fits one of the games he had against OKC where everybody was like, "Oh, he was terrible because he didn't shoot the ball."
I think you're talking about game 4, maybe.
He was still like Nikhil had 21 points, Dante had 21 points, Naz Reid hit a couple, or he was in foul trouble. One of them, they had some really big games. The other guys had really big. Jaden McDaniels was the guy that had another really big game. And a lot of it was based off of Anthony Edwards still bending the defense, even though he was not playing or the efficiency was not to the level that you would want it to out of your number one. When you're consistently getting downhill, still taking those shots at the rim, even though if you're not finishing or you're not converting, you can still kick out to the Dante DiVincenzo and Nickeil Alexander-Walkers who caught fire in that game. So if you're still putting the pressure on the defense, I wouldn't say efficiency is as important as some people make it to be. Now, if you're taking that advantage away, like let's say on half of those shots that Ant missed, he pulled up from the elbow. That is where I'm concerned. But if he's still putting 2 feet in the paint and still getting to restricted area, whether he's finishing at the rim or kicking out or just still putting the pressure on the defense and missing, I wouldn't say it's as important.
You brought up Anthony. Is that the third time Ant's been brought up today?
Yeah,
on a point guard episode without a super chat about him. That's motion, man. That's motion. So we just had Stockton at 9 with 48 points. At number 8, this guy had 69 points. Nice. So another big jump. 21 more points than John Stockton. I'm not going to reveal where we had him on the list. I'm going to go through everyone else. So ignore. Lowe did not have this person on the list. Tyler Hoop Venue had him at 9. Chill had him at 3. Ox had him at 4. Ron had him at 8. KB had him at 5. Pirate did not have him. Gifted had him at 3. Penn had him at 4. Riv and Carson had him at 9. Dream did not have him. Swiper had him at 7. Jordan had him at 6, and Sean had him at 3. So major,
all over
major,
the place.
all over the place for this guy. And then between us, 3 of us did not have him, and 1 of us had him at 4. If you guys want to just look at your list real quick.
I think I know who who you're talking about.
Okay, so I'm gonna go straight to you, ZZ.
It's IT, ain't it?
It is. It is Isiah Thomas. He
Interesting.
came in 8th place with 69 points. Zeke, he was at 4th on your list, ZZ. Talk to us.
So with Isiah Thomas, like I said before, a little bit earlier in the show, when I've had the consensus list in my head over the years, IT was always in that top 5. And the moment that nigga made it into the top 5 for me was the first time I watched the Bad Boys documentary. Because let me tell y'all, talk about getting put onto a player. I was like, okay, the history of the Detroit Pistons as a franchise, what it became, all of these things. When they were in the dumpster of like dumpster fire as an organization, Isiah Thomas was the one beacon that got them out of all of that obscurity. No matter if they surrounded him and went out and got scorers like Adrian Dantley or Mark Aguirre or eventually Joe Dumars, getting players like Vinny the Microwave Johnson off the bench, all these things. Isiah Thomas was the constant for that team that kept that team rolling. And for me, looking at how the league was in the 80s, right? It was either Boston or it was LA. And then there was occasionally Philadelphia, but also the Bad Boy Pistons to end off that decade, showcasing. And with their leader, their little point guard, this feisty little point guard, this 19-9 guy on any given night, finals MVP, right? 5-time All-NBA, if I'm not mistaken. I don't have it up in front of me, but I think all of these things for his era, he made his impact. And it all started, the Bad Boy Pistons were a moment in time that cannot be forgotten, knocking down Michael Jordan and creating the Jordan rules, with Isiah Thomas cracking a smile and cracking a dime at the same time. Like just a polar opposite, low key of what Magic Johnson was, even at that time. And to be literally, Magic's a 6'9", bright, smiling, always positive, didn't really like to talk too much shit and less provoked. Isiah Thomas was cracking a smile and still trying to stab you in your back and win his basketball game and telling his teammates to follow suit. So for me, that was all enough, along with the 2 back-to-back championships, because going back-to-back at that time was something that hadn't been done since the Boston Celtics of the Bill Russell days, or the Los Angeles Lakers, actually, Magic and Showtime. But to be in the mix of being one of those teams and to lead that unit, and everybody in this chat knows that Isiah Thomas was snubbed, and in this panel knows that Isiah Thomas was snubbed from the Dream Team. Let's talk about it. Let's not let that shit just die in the vault. All right, that was real. All that shit means something to me, damn it. All right, so IT number 4 for me. Appreciate you.
Can I? Because
Jonesy, I've seen your hate on the timeline.
I'm kind of new to this. I'm kind of new to the.
Talk to me.
Yeah, Isiah Thomas, great player. He's a great player, great passer. I don't think he was the best player on those teams. I don't say he was. I don't think he's a top 10 point guard. When I look at him, I don't think that he, as a scorer, I just don't think a lot of people really rate him like I would, to be completely honest. Like, when I see him, he shoots a lot of jump shots that I wouldn't really advise. I think he stops on a dime and shoots from the elbow or in the mid-range way too much, and he wasn't the best mid-range shooter. I don't think he got to the rim consistently. And the Pistons were known for like their defense in that Bad Boy era, and he wasn't really a great defender to me. He wasn't that good of a defender. Now, again, stop me because I might be tripping. But as a passer, I think he was solid. In transition, I think he was solid. But as a scorer, I don't think he was there. As a defender, I don't think he was there. And that just led me to keeping him off. I
think you're underselling the pass and saying solid. I think he was a really, really good passer.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I will give you that. He was a really good passer.
Solid feels like you're underselling.
But I don't know. Maybe I'm lower on his scoring and his defense because, again, I don't think he was getting to the rim as much as he could have. I do think that, again, like I said, he just was not the shooter that his shot selection would show you. Like the way he was shooting in the mid-range and the way he was stopping on a diamond shooting and kind of taking that stress off the defense, you would think he was a top-tier level mid-range shooter, a top-tier level shooter in general. And I don't think he was there.
I also didn't have him, neither did Real Talk. But speaking for myself, Isiah Thomas was someone who, when I first got into basketball, Magic Johnson was considered the greatest point guard. And then John Stockton and Isiah Thomas were 2 and 3. This is pre-Steph Curry. That was considered the top 3. And then Steph Curry came in, and the people who called him a point guard said he went into the top 3. But Isiah Thomas kind of had that third spot cemented because it was like he was the only other point guard who led a team to a championship, blah, blah, blah.
Beat
So I
Mike.
was like, okay. And this is before I became a historian. This was just me listening. And then I went and watched. I was like, okay, let me watch these Pistons team. Not with the point of trying to dispel the narrative, because I feel if you go into watching these old guys with a preconceived notion whether the player is great or the player is not that great, you're going to end up trying to confirm your beliefs, where you'll notice every turnover this guy gets, like, oh, see, he's not that good. Or every made shot, oh, see, he is that good. So I tried to go in with just a clear mind. Let me watch this guy. And I saw maybe the best handles in the league at the time, which is extremely valuable. I saw an amazing defensive team. He was probably the second worst defender in that team. Probably. But he did have value. I think his ability to double team the post, he had really good hands, trying to pressure entry passes, all of that stuff was valuable, especially in the 80s when entry passes were such a prominent part of the game. When he's trying to get up into the ball handler, trying to make those passes difficult. And then as the pass is in the air, he's able to tip it out the air and all that type of stuff. That quick reactions, anticipation was extremely good. So I think he was a positive on defense, but I don't think he was elite. And I think some people have painted him in that sense. I don't think he was. I'm with John D on the scoring part. He didn't get to the rim with the regularity that you would hope for someone as quick as him with the handles he had. But then you can also say, well, when there's two bigs camped in the lane and he's 6'1", how much are you trying to expect him to get to the rim? And I can empathize with that. But when I'm talking about his scoring ability, and we know we just spoke about efficiency, but his shot selection was just bad. Like it was just time after time. I'm watching the amount of times I've watched Isiah Thomas come down the court, 18 on the clock, and he shot a 21-foot jumper. Like, that's just bad. That's just bad offense. And I don't know if I would say Joe Dumars was the best player on the team, because I do think when it came to the playmaking part of it, the passing, the being able to fit the ball through tight windows, although Joe Dumars, really good passer, by the way.
Really good.
Might talk about him. Might talk about him next week on the top 10 shooting guards list. I do think that Isiah Thomas, just that value was something that was extremely important for that Pistons team. But when I look at my list, I got Westbrook at 10, I got Walt Frazier at 9, I got Stockton at 8. I can't convince myself that Isiah Thomas was better than any of them. And then when I bring up the longevity part of it, he tore his Achilles in the early 90s, and he wasn't.
Yeah.
So, like, the longevity is maybe you're looking at 7, 8 years, 9 years. And then I don't think he peaked as high as those guys. Just like logistically, I just don't think it makes sense to get him at the top 10. I do think you probably underselling him a little bit, John D, in terms of how good he was. But for me, I couldn't get him on the list. And I don't think that's a disrespect to him when you hear the names I had above him. But I understand in terms of finals MVP, 2-time champion, yada yada yada.
Most points scored in the NBA Finals in a quarter, still to this day.
With the hurt ankle.
Was that against the Lakers?
Yeah, they lost.
Yeah,
it
off
was
of
the.
It's crazy that like it gets forgotten to history that they lost. But he was monstrous in that fourth. But yeah, I couldn't get him on the list. But go ahead.
No, I asked y'all, like, did y'all consider accolades for the list? And I mean, clearly, we didn't for Isiah. And I'm iffy on that. Like, I left him off the list, but I'm thinking about it now. Maybe I could have snuck him in at 10 just on some respect type. You know what I'm saying? Because it does get to a point like it has to account for something. I'm not saying it's the end all be all, but like you play the games to win. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. It has to. I'm sorry, for me, that'll always be.
No, I'm with you, but I agree. But I try to evaluate as your impact towards the goal of winning. And when I look at, I don't think Isiah Thomas, and I know the Pistons won, but I can't say Isiah Thomas was more impactful to his teams consistently over the course of his career than John Stockton. I can't say that, not and believe it. Even if I do think Isiah Thomas might slightly be better at his peak, let's say I concede that. I'll say Isiah Thomas is 100%. John Stockton is 94% at his peak. He's 94% as good as Isiah Thomas was. He played twice as long. Yeah. Like, it gets to a point where it's like, okay, yeah, you might not be as good as him at your best, but the twice as long career you gave me is more valuable than the slightly better player at your peak.
I mean, I don't have him on the list myself. Like, you know, but so I hear what you're saying. It's like, but at the same time, the shot selection. Let me talk about that. Definitely some games where he would come down and then it's a brick, right? Definitely understand that. However, definitely have some games where a lot of those shots are going in.
When that jumper clicking,
I'm just so, you know what I'm saying? You have that going in, and then you mix in the passing and playmaking that he was doing at that time. Because I do agree it was kind of undersold, just solid. Like, nah, Isiah could really pass the basketball. With that jump shooting, that's a lot of value.
Yeah, it's no coincidence.
I don't have him on the list though. I'm sorry. I'm trying to talk myself into it a little bit, but it's like,
yeah, I think Isiah Thomas was really good. Like everyone who we brought up was really good. I do think it's no coincidence that the year he won Finals MVP, he shot 70% from three in the finals. Like, I don't think that's a coincidence. Like, when the jump shot's going, he's a different player. The issue is he wasn't that good of a jump shooter. So, like, if you only go back and watch the 1990 finals, by the way, one of those games, Bill Laimbeer made 6 threes.
Bill Laimbeer used to shoot.
Yeah, I don't know which game it was. I can't tell you. I want to say it was the game that went to overtime.
It was a very
I want to say it was a game that went to overtime, so I might be wrong. But one of those games he made 6 threes. Go watch it. It's actually quite fascinating. But when Isiah Thomas jumper it's like the Russell Westbrook thing. When Isiah Thomas jumper is going, that's a top 10 point guard ever. Like, to me. Because you've got the handle, you've got the shooting ability. He can get to the rim. He is an elite passer, and he's a positive on defense. It's like, how do you stop this guy? The issue is more often than not, you watch Isiah Thomas, and I'm not just saying watch playoff games or watch Isiah Thomas' greatest moments. Just watch a random Pistons game from '87. It's likely Isiah Thomas is going to shoot about 8 mid-range jumpers and go 2 for 8, 3 for 8. And it's like, So
do y'all think he like picked up his dribble a little too consistently? I think that was something I had an issue with.
I think I still would say.
Go ahead.
So for me, like, all of y'all made valid points for especially Mars with the longevity point for John Stockton. Like, there was a reason why that was so close back in the day for me, Stockton and IT, when I would think about a list like this. But for me, I think one of the other big reasons as to why I have him so high, because I'm thinking about that 80s time, that time period. When you think about where the league was, people often talk about how the 80s and Magic and Bird helping revolutionize the NBA, all of these great things, right? For Isiah Thomas to be the diamond in the rough in Detroit, it's a city that, I mean, they were moving stadiums because of attendance. And then Isiah Thomas comes through. They trade away. They trade for Bill Laimbeer. They get Dennis Rodman. The team, the makeup of the team changes. Isiah's along the way winning All-Star MVPs, eventually Finals MVP. They went to 3 straight NBA Finals, beating great teams along the way, ending the Boston Celtics dynasty in retrospect, if we're looking back on it. Like, all those things are pivotal moments that I cannot sit here and just act like IT wasn't a part of. Like, I can't sit here and act like, even though he may not have been the best player in certain series, that he wasn't the leader of that team. Those band of misfits, those defensive juggernauts, all leaned on a voice that wasn't even really Chuck Daly's as much as it was Isiah Thomas, the little point guard with the best handles arguably in the game, like Mars said, at that time, the best handles of a guard, the best. And if it wasn't Magic for best playmaking point guard, it was Isiah Thomas. This is a guy that was in those early Converse commercials with Larry Bird, IT, Dr. J, and here comes IT with his shoe. Well, damn, if that ain't the face of the franchise that then won back-to-back champion, I don't like, you know what I'm saying? Like the Bad Boys for me, that was more than just like a moment in time that was just a quick 3 years. That shit holds weight for Detroit fans from 1990 to 2005 or 2004 when they won again. Like it just, to me, those accomplishments hold a lot more weight. That's where I have to look. I can't look like I look with Russ and I'm like, the accolades aren't that, or Stockton, the accolades aren't that. I'm not expecting him to be a top 5 MVP guy, but he has something there. For this man, like for IT, that just he purposely put himself in the light with the big dogs and proved that he can win it all back to back.
I think the disconnect is probably just how much you attribute the credit to Isiah Thomas for the Pistons' success versus the rest of us. I'm probably not with John D in saying Joe Dumars was the best player on the team, although I definitely see the argument.
Yes,
like I definitely see the
I
argument.
think so. I think Joe Dumars was the best scorer. I think he was the best scorer. I think
I could convince myself of like 1A, 1B, I guess. I could convince myself of that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I had him like, I don't know where I had him, like 12, 13. Like he was somewhere.
Yeah, he was in my top 15. He was in my top 15.
He was really good. Teddy Hart with a super chat regarding Zeke. He said, we say Zeke was snubbed off the dream team, but if it's not Stockton, then Tim Hardaway, based on the 91-92 season, making the All-NBA second team, still had a better claim for that spot than Isiah. That's kind of for you, ZZ. Oh, damn. Yeah, God shine on you right there. But yeah, so was Isiah snubbed?
For me, I think that at the time, contextualizing it, like you said, also, Magic Johnson was put on that team. If we're going to sit here and talk about who the
he wasn't even in the league. Yeah, he wasn't even in the league.
You know what I'm saying? Like you can't really hold that argument. Isiah Thomas should have got a legacy award the same as Magic and Larry Bird. That's my argument on it. Now, if you want to say Tim Hardaway Jr. was better, probably, maybe he was, but he was probably also better than Magic Johnson, who wasn't an active NBA player, to be able to get that spot at that time. But it is what it is. Like it's up to your interpretation. So yeah, that's my take on it. Valid take though.
Shout out to Tim Hardaway. He came 5th in MVP once, or like 4th in MVP once. Yeah. I remember seeing that because the Heat were a really good team and they decided that he was the best player, even though it was Alonzo Mourning. But next we have, what number are we at? Number 7. Number 7. This is where I got close. So Isiah Thomas had 69 points. Number 7 has 73. So just squeaked ahead. And then number 6 had 77. So it was really close between these 3 players. I'm not going to spoil where we had them. I'm going to go through everyone else. Lowe had this guy at 6. Tyler had this guy at 6. Chill had him at 8. Ox did not have him. Ron did not have him. KB had him at 8. Pirate had him at 7. Gifted had him at 5. Penn had him at 10. Riv had him at 6. Carson had him at 6. Dream had him at 4. Swiper had him at 5. Jordan had him at 10. And Sean had him at 7. And then among us, this is the first player we all had on the list.
Oh.
First player that all of us had on the list. I had him at 6. John D had him at 6. ZZ had him at 7. And Real Talk had him at 7. It is the 2-time MVP, Steve Nash. Do I start with Steve Nash? Is that where we have to do?
Take it away, buddy. It's only right, buddy. It's only right.
Yeah. Steve Nash is someone who I have been pushing the campaign for very strongly for the last couple of years. I mean, I had him at 6. I think some people might have expected me to have him higher.
I definitely thought I would have to argue my number 5 against Steve Nash, but
your number 5. Oh, okay, I see it. But yeah, Steve Nash came at number 6 for me because I think, although at his peak, I view him as one of the, let's just say tier 1 is a big group. I view him as one of the tier 1 offensive players in NBA history. The offenses he was able to churn out year after year with different personnel, different coaches, different systems. You don't have to give him all the credit for Dallas. We understand Dirk was there. but he was the primary playmaker on that team. Dirk basically had no other role other than to score the ball. And then he goes to Phoenix with D'Antoni and them, leads some of the best offenses we've ever seen, some of the best 5-year team offense stretches in playoff and regular season history. He's one of the best shooters of all time. I'm of the belief that he is the only player ever who is a top 5 shooter and top 5 passer in the history of the game. I think he's the only person who can make that claim, even come close to making that claim. Maybe Larry Bird. He's the only one I would even think about entertaining in that conversation. I view him as the second best playmaker of all time. I think as an offensive weapon, his ability to push the pace and make half-court possessions seem like transition possessions is some of the most valuable things a player can do. It's something that I've become. It's why I'm higher on Tyrese Halliburton than I used to be.
Yeah.
I think just being able to make half-court possessions, because I think playing in the half-court is intrinsically less valuable than playing in transition. If you're able to manufacture transition possessions, they're more efficient for a reason. Defenses aren't set, blah, blah, blah. And Steve Nash was the king at that, just controlling pace. Well, the prince of that. There was another guy who was probably better than him at that, but we'll get to him later. The issue was longevity. He came into the league at 22 and really didn't become a legitimate player until 27.
Yeah,
we're looking like 01 maybe is the earliest you can give him in terms of becoming a legitimately a good NBA player. Before that, it was a bunch of injuries, and he wasn't that impactful. So the lack of longevity, he was really good in his late 20s, early 30s, but we're really looking at 01 to 2011 at the longest, and that's being extremely optimistic. Realistically, you're looking at 03 to 2010. It's about a 7-8 year stretch of elite performance, but then even then, 03 and 04 aren't close to 05 to 2010. So once you start looking at peak Steve Nash, you're looking at about 6 seasons. And then if you want to talk about being a really good player, you're looking at maybe 8 or 9. That just wasn't enough to crack him into my top 5 for me. Although I do think at his peak, he has a strong case to be in the top 5. But the longevity just holds him back. And then also, he is by far the worst defender. By far. He is the worst defender that can possibly be named here. It's actually ridiculous how bad he was on defense. I go back and watch some games sometimes. I'm like, he might be the worst defender ever. Like, that's how bad he was. So that held him back as well in these talks. But I had Nash at 6. John D, you also had him at 6. So talk to me about Steve Nash.
Per PBB stats, 5 of the best relative offenses in the league. Steve Nash was the main source of 3 of them. I think Steve Nash, when it comes to shooting, passing, ball handling, being able to play out of the pick and roll, being a pull-up mid-range shooter, pull-up three-point shooter, he was elite. He maintained at least +4 relative true shooting throughout his peak, plus like 8 3-point shooting compared to the NBA at his peak, like +10 offensive rating. He had multiple years, and then in the playoffs, it carried on. A lot of people like to look at Steve Nash and say, oh, they never went to the finals. I don't think the offenses had like anything to do with why they didn't go to the finals or why they didn't win. I think it was just because the defense was terrible, and Steve Nash had stuff to do with that, which, like Mara said, is why I could not have him in my top 5, because I think my number 5 is way better defensively. So as when we talk about like Steve Nash only averaging 18 points per game, 19 points per game, it's not because of the talent. It was not because of the talent, because I think if Steve Nash was more aggressive on the offensive end as a scorer, he could average 23 to 24 points per game with the ball handle, the ability to get to the rim, the 3-point shooting, and played off the ball at times as well. So I think Steve Nash was very talented. I have him at his peak, one of the 10 greatest offensive players of all time. So I think Steve Nash 100% is up there.
We'll talk. I know you're not as high on Steve Nash, but you did have him quite high on the list. I think 7, so 1 spot below us. Talk to me.
I'm not gonna lie, your propaganda has worked a bit on me throughout the years. I've definitely had a more favorable outlook on Steve Nash lately, but we always contextualize like winning and championships and this variable and this variable. But like what I do like to try to do is like you can also contextualize like statistics. So when y'all say, I know Steve Nash fans, they look this y'all go to, right? Yeah. 5 of the best offenses relative. He's like he has 3. So like, you know what I'm saying? Great point. Great talking point. Absolutely. Definitely was a spearhead for those offenses. However, I would argue that his teams were always so offense facing You know what I'm saying? He was playing with a
Absolutely.
coach who was not really concerned about two-way viability. It
Facts.
was, how can we maximize offense, right? So if he's out there with, I mean, there's times on those some Suns teams he's out there with like Leandro Barbosa playing the other two, like knowing that they probably shouldn't be on the court together. If I was thinking about, the other end of the sport. But if I am maximizing my offense, here goes another ball handler and another guy that can shoot 40+% from three, and a guy that can attack the rim. If I'm thinking about like some of those, fun fact, by the way, everybody go back and look at Joe Johnson's shooting numbers playing in Phoenix. Absolutely absurd.
Like 45% from three.
Yeah,
It was
right,
really,
crazy. He was not missing in Phoenix. But like playing with people
I
like
mean,
that,
when your shot quality increases to that
Spoon
degree,
feeding him. Spoon
I
feeding.
know.
Yeah, I mean, there's a
I
reason
know,
why.
I
There's a
know,
reason
I
why.
know.
I know.
And that's
Some
why he's at
people's-
number
some
7.
people's-
That's why he's at
Some
number
people's
7.
numbers with Steve Nash are
Yeah.
big. Without Steve Nash,
Yep. Thank you, Mars.
Yeah, he definitely gets a lot of credit for the offensive boost, but I'm just saying, like, I think there are some more factors that are going into play as far as why he's grading out so high. And like
I absolutely agree with you. This is why I think I've grown. Younger Mars from a couple years ago when I first started pushing Steve Nash propaganda, I was team just of the 15 best offenses of all time. Steve Nash was the main decision maker on 7 of them, or whatever the number was. And then since then, I haven't really said that as much, because I think, and the team that really I had to go back and watch, because Young Mars was a lot of stats, hadn't watched as much. I went back and watched those 04 Mavs teams that is statistically the best offense of all time. They just cheated the system to have a great offense. They ran Dirk at the 5. It was Antoine. It was all over the place. It was crazy. So I was like, okay, I can see what's going on here. That's clearly reducing the numbers. But I do think Steve Nash showed in 06, I'll use 06, that he can produce elite offensive results regardless of personnel. And I'm not saying that the Suns weren't still offensively leaning. They were offensively slanted heavily, of course. But I think his skill set translated from coach to coach. You got Don Nelson, who used him more in a prototypical point guard role. He wasn't trusted to be as aggressive downhill, all of that. It was more be patient, survey the floor, let Dirk come off that down screen. You gonna find him, blah, blah, blah. And he showed he could do that. Then he got with D'Antoni. It was the run and gun. Here's the freedom. Shoot the pull-up jumper, get everyone involved, touch the paint, create layups. He's the best ever at that, in my opinion. And then Alvin Gentry comes in. He piggybacks off Mike D'Antoni and then says, hey, why don't we try playing a little bit of defense? That was the Alvin Gentry role. And he showed that it was elite offense, elite offense, elite offense. The number that sticks out to me is from 05 to 07. I think that's Nash's 3 best years. With Nash on the court, the Suns had a 117 offensive rating. Best in the league, blah, blah, blah. With him off the court, the same offensively slanted Suns team, by Real Talk submission that I agree with, had a 104 offensive rating. Fell off the face of the earth. And the reason for that is not because Nash is that impactful, it's because, quite frankly, they didn't have another playmaker on the team. So once again, we can contextualize that. But I think it goes to show the quality of shots that Steve Nash was creating couldn't just be replaced with anyone. It was Steve Nash's ability to get into the paint. He wasn't the fastest, he wasn't the best athlete, but his handle was extremely functional. And his ability to get into the paint, probe around, collapse defenses, find passes, do some of the craziest angles I've ever seen. It was just, no one could replicate what Nash did. And it annoys me when I hear the D'Antoni tags. Like, you put anyone in D'Antoni's system, look at Jeremy Lin. It's like, watch what Jeremy Lin did with D'Antoni. Watch what Steve Nash did with it. It wasn't the same. The box score numbers be damned. It wasn't the same. And there's a reason why the results with Steve Nash shone the way they did. It wasn't just about, he averages 18 and 10 or 15 and 11, wherever he averaged. I don't know what he averaged. It wasn't about that. It was about what he was doing on a possession to possession basis to create the best offense possible. And quite frankly, there wasn't this side of Kobe, because I'm high on Kobe and what he was doing in the mid 2000s, despite what people want to say about them losing in the playoffs. This side of Kobe, Nash was that offensively. It was Kobe, Nash, Dirk. They were the 3 best offensive players in the league, in my opinion. And I think that holds a lot of weight. So
real talk, real quick. If you ever get a chance, go back to 05 or 06 and watch the Seattle Supersonics play the Phoenix Suns. It's some of the best basketball I have ever watched. When we talk about pace, shot making, offense, masterclass. Ray Allen, Rashard Lewis, Steve Nash, Joe Johnson, Vladimir Radmanovic.
Was this regular or playoff? You said playoff?
No, in the regular season. In the regular season. When
the
those
league
teams
didn't want to
caught
put
fire,
them together in the playoffs.
Yeah, 100%. But
it would have been
those
2018
games,
hoops in 05. That's
oh
what it
my
would have been.
God. It was beautiful basketball. Beautiful.
Two teams very ahead of their time. Another team ahead of his time is like the Kings from the early 2000s. But anyway, ZZ, is there anything you
last thing I do want to something that also pushed me towards getting to where you are more so on Nash is just his shooting prowess. Like, he's legit one of the best like shooters ever. Definitely low on volume, but like if you just watched him play, like this is somebody that can shoot threes off the dribble. That mid-range game was also like he could snake and get to it just damn near as good as CP, and CP made a career off that. That little snake getting to the mid-range and stuff like that. So yeah, him being one of the 10 best shooters, roughly.
You underselling them. There was something I saw. It was a while ago, so I can't remember the exact numbers. I'm gonna try to find it. Like 07-ish. Steve Nash was like the most efficient isolation scorer in the NBA. Now, once again, contextualize the numbers. It was a lot of get the big out. We're gonna get to the like. It wasn't Kobe isolations, and it wasn't close to the volume. But like, Steve Nash could score the ball. That was the point I'm trying to get to. Like, and I've never, and I know you've asked me about this in the past. You was like, does Steve Nash's scoring aggression bother you? Like, do you think that was an issue? And I've always said no, because the offense was never an issue for the Suns. So it's like, if the offense is never a problem, in fact, they have the best offense in the playoffs damn near every year. Why do I need Steve Nash to be more aggressive as a scorer if he's creating the best offense anyway? It was never, and any series where they seem to need more scoring, well, not any series, because he had bad series, like 08 against the Spurs wasn't a great series, but like for the most part, any series where they needed Steve Nash scoring, he could ramp up the volume, whether that's in the fourth quarters to close games or just throughout the games. He could do it because he was that capable of a scorer. In 07, he was 86th percentile in isolation. I had to pull up the numbers. Shout out to Synergy. 94th percentile in 06. So like those are the years I'm kind of talking about. It was like you kind of couldn't stop him. So yeah, Steve Nash, special player. I don't know if ZZ had anything to say about Steve Nash, because we was kind of just yapping and ZZ just been chilling. So yeah, ZZ.
Yeah, no, I mean, y'all harped on pretty much the same points that I was going to make. Some that stood out to me, or stand out to me when it comes to ranking Steve Nash all time anyway, are I've always looked at him and I've said this kind of the same thing Mars was alluding to, but in terms of shooting for the point guard position, he's top 5, even with the modest volume that he had for his career. This was a guy that was 50, 40, 90, the most ever of any player in NBA history, above Kevin Durant, above Steph Curry. Like, this was a guy that was a walking 50, 40, 90. The only argument, and I've said this before, and Don, you damn right I'm hiding that glare. And I made this argument before. And it's that when I look at Nash and his, like, people don't talk about, he went to 4 Western Conference Finals, like in the 2000s. He went to 4. And 2 of them, they weren't even really that highly projected to make it that far. One of them ended in controversy, but it is what it is. But like that 06 season, for example, Amari Stoudemire only played 3 games in that series. And I mean, in that season alone. So when that happened, when he went down, the projection of the Phoenix Suns dropped significantly, and they still ended up making the Western Conference Finals as the 4 seed, which is why Steve Nash won MVP that year.
Coming back from 3-1 in the first rounds. Yeah.
Right.
We don't talk about that.
They don't.
Yeah, that series only gets like, either it's used to bash Kobe blew a 3-1 lead, or whatever. But like, the Suns came back from 3-1 in the first rounds without Amari Stoudemire. Like,
crazy. And Steve Nash and Mars. Like,
damn you, Tim Thomas.
Yeah, I don't remember that. Don't remember
that
it.
three. That three was. Oh my god.
But yeah, so for me, the everything from the ball handling, the probing, the assists, the setup, just how he works, how he can work in transition and a half court set as well is it's just, I mean, he was just electric for his time. Multiple number one offenses led for multiple different teams. We look at Phoenix, the early years in Dallas when he was with Dirk, they were still top three offenses at their peak. So for me, all those things just mattered. They always mattered. For me, him making the Western Conference Finals in a 10-year period where you could argue that it was the toughest that it had ever been, also holds weight for me. And yeah, he never made it to the NBA Finals, but 4 Western Conference Finals is nothing to sleep on for me. And the 2 MVPs back to back to match. He was a great floor raiser for his teams as well. So W Steve Nash.
I always say if I was an accolade guy, my Steve Nash propaganda would be so much easier. Yeah, the guy has 2 MVPs, and I'm so anti accolades. I never bring it up. It's like my case is right there. Like name another point guard with 2 MVPs, and it's Magic, Steph, Nash. I'm like, oh, yeah. There you go. But
and you know too that it's like there's controversy with his MVPs, but you also know there's validity too. So that's why sometimes I feel comfortable bringing that up, and other times I'm ready with ammunition just in case somebody want to say like, he ain't deserve it. Like I'm like either way, it was solid, it was justified, and everything like that. Steve was one of them ones.
I agree. That was our number 7, Steve Nash, 73 points. We do now have number 6. Well, like I said, 77 points. So this was close. I have a feeling you guys might know who this is based on them being close. But before I reveal where you guys had them, Sean had this guy at 8. Jordan had him at 4. Swiper had him at 8. Dream had him at 8. Carson had him at 7. Riff had him at 7. Penn had him at 5. Gifted had him at 8. Pirate had him at 9. KB had him at 6. Ron had him at 6. Ox had him at 3. Real Talk had him at 6. Chill had him at 7. Tyler had him at 7. ZZ had him at 10. Low had him at, what's that? 7? Low had him at 7. John D had him at 8. And I had him at 7. It is the other point guard from the 2000s, Jason Kidd. So, Real Talk, I believe you had him the highest of all of us. You did. You had him at 6. I believe you were also the only one that had him above Nash. Am I correct? You are the only one that had him above Nash. You don't need to compare the two. You don't need to say he's better than Nash but I am going to start with you. Talk to me about Jason Kidd.
Well, obviously, having the argument for best defender on this list. A lot of value in that statement. Something that you brought up earlier, and this is where I've started to appreciate the value in this, is making every possession feel fast breakish, playing with that level of pace. And even though, also when we were talking about Rondo earlier, and I was like, well, there's a version of this player who is solidified in the top 10. To me, I was thinking about Jason Kidd, right? So just a pinpoint passer, but somebody who's elite defensively and just dictates the pace of the game at a masterful level, and almost not completely, but damn near neglects the non-shooting factor that he has, because number one, he's always going to eat up that space and attack the basket. He also could play off the post a little bit as a bigger guard, and command some attention down there too. So I think he did enough to kind of mask that shooting problem, and he did eventually. You don't just finish top whatever 3-point shooting at the end of your career. I think you finish top 10 in makes. Eventually, some of them shots started to fall a little bit. Not at an amazing clip, but just a little bit. So yeah, I really appreciate the Jason Kidd and what he brought to the game as a PG.
I think.
Oh, go ahead.
Because I had Walt at 7 and I had Kidd at 8. I came to the conclusion that Frazier was a better defender in my opinion, but Kid also played really well defense. He had possessions out of the post where he denied the ball, which I think was very impactful. He played off the ball, playing passing lanes. He was also very strong and lengthy, so you can put him on some wings, and he could be very versatile defensively. He always pushed the pace in transition. The only thing I held from like pushing him a little higher on this list was the shot selection, in my opinion. Sometimes I think pulling up from mid-range when he wasn't the best mid-range shooter. I said this about somebody else on the list as well. I just think the shot selection wasn't the best, and I think he could have gotten more offensively. Like the transition is still very valuable, but in the half court, I do think he could have pushed out a little bit more offensively, especially in the earlier 2000 years when I feel like he was more athletic than later in the 2000s, where he did start to knock down more mid-range shots. But I definitely think he could have squeezed out a little bit more offensively in the half court. But as a defender, one of the best defenders on this list, top 2, top 3 defenders on this list, one of the better passers out of transition, one of the better transition players. So I couldn't keep him like off the list.
Do we get? I want to ask y'all this very quickly. Like, yes, bad shooter, but I do feel like there's when you have the ball in your hands to that extent, don't you just kind of have to shoot a couple of them? Like, I feel like you have to at least try to like
to keep the
have the
defense honest.
It's something like I feel like there's no way you don't shoot a couple of maybe.
But do
like,
we need to see transition pull up threes from Jason Kidd?
That's what I'm saying. Like my thing
Probably
with Jason
not.
Kidd,
No.
my thing,
No.
my thing with Jason Kidd is literally that like he's undoubtedly a top 10 point guard for me. His defense is the biggest, most impressive thing for me throughout his entire career, on top of his longevity. But the only knock that I had for him offensively was his shooting. Like John D said, there was in the 2002 run to the NBA Finals, he shot 19% from 3 on 5 attempts. So real talk, it comes to a point where it's like, nigga, stop shooting. Like it's not, and it's like, and my thing is with Steve Nash, my biggest argument is like, damn, you ain't shooting enough, but you still got that, because the efficiency it's incredible, but it's not as incredible as it could be if you were more of a volume shooter, like your efficiency and like how your narrative says you are. Jason Kidd was not the most efficient shooter, but like you said, he could set the tone, he could set the pace. He is one of the, I'd say, a top 3 or 4 rebounder on this list in general. And his defense makes up for other areas in which he may not have been the best in, like efficiency. But because like his like, and even in the postseason, his numbers, especially efficiency wise, drop. His 3-point percentages drop, I think, by 2 or 3%. His field goal percentage is under 40. And he's been to the playoffs so many times in his career as well. So you have the longevity argument there as well to keep a little bit of weight on that argument. And because I've over the years, I said, you know what, like you said, real talk, I don't look at it like, you know, isn't he supposed to shoot it? I look at it as maybe he just wasn't as efficient as some other people in this position. Doesn't mean that he's worse than these guys, because he has other areas that he excels at that Steve Nash could never sniff, like defense, right? But shooting and scoring, sometimes it wasn't on him. Sometimes it was about how could he get Kenyon Martin involved, or Richard Jefferson, or whoever it was. Like, how could he, in the 2011 series, how could he make an impact, finding Jason Terry in them corners, or finding Dirk Nowitzki to get him the best, consistent, most open look that he can find. Things like that. He still had that IQ, but his efficiency is the thing that really holds him back for me in terms of putting him like top 5. But that defense is legit. It is legit, and he deserves him to be in a top 10 list.
Damn, you had him at 10. I forgot. Yeah, I think I've been very consistent. I've been trying to push the Jason Kidd's the best defensive point guard ever conversation for years now. I know Gary Payton, I know Walt Frazier, but for me, it's Jason Kidd. I think the impact he had on the defensive side of the ball is so understated. It's not just, oh, he was a great defender because he could guard point guards.
Mm-hmm.
Like it was all the stuff he did away from the ball. It was the taking charges. It was the constant communication. It was the activity. It was the speed in which he was able to rotate. I found out when I did the PCL the first time, not season 2, the first time. And I think it was against Gifted. And I was doing research for the most underrated defensive player ever. and I picked Jason Kidd. The year before, I want to make sure I have it because I wrote it down. The year before Jason Kidd joined the Nets, they were 23rd in defense.
Yep.
He joins the team. They're the best defense in the league. He joined them from the Suns, who were the number 2 defense. He left. They fell out the top 10. I've never seen a point guard be that
Those are anchor
influential.
numbers. Yeah.
I've never seen a point guard with that level of influence on the defensive side of the ball. I've said I think I respect what Kenyon Martin did. I think he was a tremendous defender. His switchability as a big for that era was tremendous. I view Jason Kidd as the anchor of that defense. He wasn't the man in the middle, but he was the man in the middle of it all. He was the anchor of that defense. He was a better off-ball defender than an on-ball defender, but he was a very strong on-ball defender too. His frame, he was 6'4", 6'8" wingspan. He had really good quickness laterally. He could guard legitimately 1 through, for that era, 1 through 3, because like in today's game, it's like 1 through 4, legit. But like back in that era, it was 1 through 3. He had some of the best hands I've ever seen. Like he was, I don't know if I ever seen him miss a strip. Like he never missed. And he like, it was like he wasn't going to meet you at the top at the apex and block a shot, but he was going to be so early in rotation that you won't. He was providing rim deterrence as a 6'4" guard. Like he was a special defender. And then as a passer, I think he's a top 5 passer in the history of the game. Like he's like in that Rondo mode where he doesn't have that scoring gravity, but he's able to fit the ball through windows that you don't even think exist. I saw a passing compilation of Jason Kidd on Twitter like a week ago, maybe. He threw one of the craziest lobs I've ever seen. Like I don't even know how to explain what I just watched, but like his ability to push pace, like you alluded to, Real Talk, that was a big thing for me. And then just the passing, the fitting the ball through tight windows, all of that stuff, along with the defense, and then the way he was able to change his game as he got older. He wasn't going to be your run and gun Jason Kidd, but him being able to improve as a jump shooter, be able to play off the ball, play off a guy like Dirk Nowitzki, but then still provide really good defensive. He gets underrated as a defender in his later years because he was old, and people are like, oh, well, he was 37. So his defense fell off. I was like, he was still one of the best defenders in the league. Like at 37, go watch him for Dallas. He was still one of the most impactful defenders, especially at his position in the league. I'm like, that malleability to be able to provide value for that long was what led me to being so high on Jason Kidd. I say so high, and I ended up having him at 7. But I think 7 is high. So scoring deficiencies aside, I didn't like the shot selection. I'm with John D on that. I don't think he was a great finisher at the rim. I don't think he was a very good jump shooter in his peak. I do think he had bad shot selection. All of that stuff. And I still think he's the 7th greatest point guard in NBA history. I just think he was that much of a difference maker and all the other things. So yeah, I got Jason Kidd at 7. I don't have anything else to say. Is there anything you guys want to add to Jason Kidd?
Top 5 coaching moment I ever saw was when he was in Milwaukee.
Oh, God,
to run into him with the cup in his hand. That was like, that's how I knew he was one of the greatest point guards ever. That IQ boy.
Yeah, fair enough. Fair enough. Yeah. Shout out to Jason Kidd. That was our number 6. We are now on to number 5. There is a big jump from 77 points to Jason Kidd to 99 for this number 5. I've saved these super chats, so I think you guys are going to know who it is. 913 T-Mac said, still mad at David Stern about the Chris Paul and Kobe situation. He then says Chris Paul is the most underrated point guard of all time, all because he doesn't have a ring. I'm a fan of you guys from PC. Much love. Thank you. And then Teddy Hart sent a super chat 2 hours ago now, saying, all I know is that no point guard ever gives me the best combination of scoring ability, playmaking, defense, and longevity than CP3. So I think it goes without saying that number 5 with 99 points is Chris Paul. Before we talk about Chris Paul, I want to let everyone know where everyone had him on the list. I'm going to start with myself. I had him at 4. John D had him at 5. Lowe had him at 5. ZZ had him at 6. Tyler had him at 5. Chill had him at 9. Real Talk had him at 5. Ox had him at 8. Ron had him at 10. KB had him at 7.